What are you doing with that bowl? Ah, I'm sorry, Naim. Twins have arrived. You have to give up this room. I would appreciate some kindness.
The same moon. Fawsia, what are you doing here?
2 of the nurses didn't come to work this evening, so I offered to help.
Really? You're a nurse?
Yes. I trained in Nairobi.
Then why do you work as an arts therapist?
I don't have a degree. I can't work in your country.
Their loss. Why didn't you come and join me? We haven't had a chat in a while.
That would be nice.
So, how are you doing?
I'm well. I still make some silly mistakes with my English.
No, your English is great.
You are a lot happier.
Well, I couldn't get much worse, could I?
I was very worried about you.
That's nice to know that someone cares. But, it shouldn't be an arts therapist in a Help for Heroes recovery hospital. It should be the British government. But they just throw us to the hands of charity after sending us out on 2 completely pointless wars. It pisses me off. I saw Blair today on the TV, and he was congratulating Saudi in what was supposed to be a speech about radical Islam. Do you know that Saudi was the home country of 15 out of the 19 9/11 hijackers? And he's just a lying, money-grabbing, social-climbing prick. He kisses the arse of all these wealthy Middle Eastern monarchs so he can get money and more money, and then he says he does what he does because of his Christian beliefs. Listen to me having a rant. I just can't stand that man. Always supposed ideals. I wanted to ask you something.
What?
I don't get why you're here. Why a British Army recovery hospital? It just seems a bit odd.
So there are no Christians doing aid work in Somalia?
No, you know what I mean.
I have my reasons.
Well, what are they?
I don't think you could understand.
Try me.
It's very difficult for me to talk about. It's very painful and it makes no sense. It still doesn't make any sense. Several years ago, my big brother Amir was killed in Somalia. He was shot dead by a Belgian UN worker. It was an accident. A tragic accident, and I felt dead ever since. I don't know. I thought if I came over here, I could make sense of it all. How could I ever know that a white man would kill my brother?
It's terrible. I'm really sorry.
We were so close. Always playing together and make plans to live next to each other when we were older. Even when Mogadishu was under attack, before I left, he'd act all heroic, saying, "Fawsia, nobody's going to get us. We are going to live forever."
I know what you're feeling, and I am so sorry. I saw one of my best friends die. He stepped on an IED.
What's that?
It's a kind of bomb, actually. It's one that a kid could make. It's simple to make. It's not high tech, It's not what you would associate with military weapons. The weird thing is that you get used to people shooting at you. You just don't know if it's going to be you they're shooting at that day or somebody else. But with the IED, there's no way of telling. It was a simple walkout. We'd done that journey so many times before, but we just never walked within a foot of where the bomb was. There was so much shrapnel in the IED, he was literally blown into 1,000 pieces. A bomb within a bomb. And he was absolutely my best friend. And it's one of the few jobs in life where you make friends that you would actually physically die for. It's one of the few jobs, with most jobs, it's, you give a shit about your promotion, or I've got a nice house and I want to show it off, I've got something fancy. It's one of the few jobs where you are actually trained to give your life for somebody else, and you would die for them. He's the closest person in the world to me, and I watched him blow up in my face. That's what I saw. And now I don't have anybody to talk to about anything, you know? I don't have anybody. It's gone. It's all gone. My best mate blown up in front of me. A bomb is a switch with a power source connected to a detonator which is placed inside an explosive main charge. Now, an IED can consist of anything that will keep two metal contacts apart. We've seen strips of wood and clothes pegs formed to make a switch. The contacts can then be moved by either applying or releasing pressure. So, the most simple devices we've come across consist of simply two pieces of wood, maybe 1 inch wide and about a foot long, with hacksaw blades nailed to each separate piece of wood. Then the two pieces of wood are kept apart with either a sponge or maybe another piece of wood. Anything really that will allow the two metal axles to make contact when pressure is applied. The same theory works if the device is pressure released. Wires are then connected from the blades to the detonator, which is quite often the most complicated piece. It's nothing commercial, it's something improvised. The detonator is then put into homemade explosives. Very often, this is ammonium nitrate. It's a very common fertilizer. You can find it all over Helmand. And this is mixed together with aluminium filings and sugar. This is known as anal, and this is your main charge. Now, the explosive needs to be kept in a container, something that will keep it dry. And all across the Helmand, Taliban often use palm oil containers. In this state, the explosive is very stable. I mean, you could throw it against the wall and nothing would happen. You could burn it, and yeah, it would burn furiously, but it wouldn't explode. This is what you need the detonator for. So the detonator is often inserted by simply cutting a hole in a container and then resealing it. Now, the device needs a power supply. So, what's available? Batteries. 8 1.5 volt batteries is often enough. And there you have it. A very simple circuit that, well, an 11-year-old could put together, consisting of a power source connected to a switch, the pressure release, and a detonator. To flick the switch, you make the two metal parts come together. This allows the electric current to flow from the batteries into the detonator in the main charge, which causes a small explosion, but explodes with enormous force. Now, if you want to increase more power, you can simply add more anal or common munitions such as artillery, mortar bombs, hand grenades, or even a rocket warhead. This is what is known as a high metal content IED. But the Taliban are very clever, and they're very adaptable, and they've now started making low metal content IED, and these are much, much more difficult to detect.
The Arabic word jihad is often translated as holy war, but in a purely linguistic sense, it means struggling or striving. The Arabic word for war is al-harb. Jihad is not a violent concept. Jihad is not a declaration of war. It is worth noting that the Quran specifically refers to Jews and Christians as people of the book, to be protected and respected. All three faiths worship the same God. Allah is just the Arabic word for God used by Christian Arabs as well as Muslims.
This makes me so mad. It seems to me that one fundamental group is fighting another fundamental group. You have the Taliban, and then you have Blair and George Bush fighting as Christian fundamentalists. The UN is not Muslim. It's Christian.
Well, I don't know if you're right there, but I mean, do you feel like you were treated differently after 9/11? I don't know much about Nairobi.
Not in Nairobi. I found my treatment here in the UK very different. The West has demonized Muslims. The West is scared of 1.2 billion people as we are all potential jihads. I find people's reactions in London, when I stay with my uncle, very strange. On the underground, if late at night, I don't wear my hijab, nobody cares or notices. If I wear the hijab, people look at me strangely, as if I shouldn't be there. Am I supposed to be at home cooking for my husband?
So you don't always wear the hijab?
No. Why should I? My mother would sometimes wear it and sometimes she wouldn't. It wasn't how we were brought up. In my house we lived with our grandfather, who was a very religious man and would pray 5 times a day, but he never enforced Islam on the women of the house. And he lived with 3 generations of women. Religion was very personal to him. And he never said a word against my mother when she got her 2nd divorce. But coming here, you see it in the media all the time. Islam is linked to terrorism and extremism. You know Somalia wouldn't have Al-Sheebab if it weren't for America. They didn't like the Islamic Party who managed to solve the problems of the warlords. They didn't want them in power, but by getting rid of them and playing the warlords off each other, that was the creation of Al-Sheebab.
I see your point about one fundamentalist group fighting another, but, you know, fundamentalism isn't all that bad. It's only when it becomes extremist, that's when you have to worry.
Yes, but Iraq isn't full of extremists. Somalia has Islamic extremists and America abandoned us.
Fawsia, listen to me. I served in the British Army, okay? Don't think that I'm not angry with the Bush administration. I mean, the guy is a total joke. And he uses his self-righteous religious beliefs that has murdered hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis. Hundreds and thousands of civilians. He deserves to be hung more than Saddam did.
That was then. You know London gangs are financing Al-Sheebab.
No shit.
I'm going back. Back to Nairobi. I've been offered a job to work for the UN there. For Somalia.
You must be kidding. They killed your brother.
My people are being killed all the time.
But then, that's insane. Why go somewhere that's so unsafe?
I have sons. We live in inner city London. Do you know how dangerous that is? It would be safer for them to grow up in Kenya, not Tower Hamlets.
I fought for the safety of my country, okay? I didn't go to war for politics. That comes after war. But to say that you're leaving the UK because the streets are too dangerous, that's insane. That's fucking insane.
Not to me, it isn't.
Muslims are allowed in certain circumstances to wage war. Every student of Islamic history knows that his holy prophet and his companions were subject to the severest persecution as Islam gained ground at Mecca. Over 100 of them fled to Abyssinia, but persecution at home still grew more relentless. Thus, the object of allowing the Muslim to fight is not to compel the unbeliever to accept Islam, for it is against all the broad principles in which they had hitherto been brought up. No, it was to establish religious freedom, to stop the persecution of all religions, and to protect the houses of worship for all religions, mosques among them. Thus, Muslims are permitted to undertake war not only to stop the persecution of their own religion and to save their mosques, but also to save the churches and synagogues as well, to protect perfect religious freedom.